Welcome to today's Explainer. We've got a truly shocking true crime case to unpack today, one that completely shattered a peaceful Florida town. We're going to unravel a deeply complex investigation, one that takes us from a quiet suburban kitchen in Bonita Springs all the way to rural Missouri. As we go through this, we'll piece together the digital footprints, the physical evidence, and some stunning betrayals that unraveled what was honestly very nearly a flawless conspiracy. It's like a giant puzzle, really showing how modern detective work operates, even when the picture is actively being hidden from them. Let's get right into it. The lead detectives on this case actually said this was almost the perfect crime. And I really want to hook you immediately with just how close these perpetrators came to getting away with the whole shebang. When investigators arrived at the scene, they found absolutely no trace evidence. Nothing was stolen. The house wasn't even ransacked. It was a horrific, violent crime scene, yet the killers? They vanished like ghosts. So how do you solve a case with no footprints, no fingerprints, and seemingly zero motive? Let's figure that out together.
Okay, let's dive into this. Part 1, Murder in Bonita Springs. To really understand the crime, we have to start by understanding the victim. Dr. Teresa Sievers was a 46-year-old mother of two and a very prominent holistic doctor in Bonita Springs, Florida. Now, because there was no obvious smoking gun at the crime scene, the investigation initially took some incredibly wild directions. Detectives were essentially throwing darts in the dark. Was it a disgruntled patient, an angry employee? Things actually got even stranger from there. Web sleuths started theorizing that some shadowy government group was out there assassinating holistic doctors who were discovering cures for cancer. Sounds like a movie plot, right? But detectives actually had to look into it because at that moment, literally everyone was a suspect. Ultimately, though, all of these turned out to be dead ends. So naturally, attention turns to the husband, Mark Sievers. But Mark had what appeared to be an absolutely airtight alibi for the weekend. On Friday, Mark and their two daughters stayed behind in Connecticut for a family gathering. Teresa flew home on Sunday night alone just because she had a practice to run. Surveillance video captured her alive and well at the Fort Myers airport, but by Monday morning, she didn't show up to work. When a neighbor went to check on her, he found her brutally beaten to death on her kitchen floor. And through all of this, her husband, Mark, was over 1,000 miles away, which seemingly gave him the ultimate alibi. Moving right along. Part 2, Clues Point to Missouri. So, how exactly do investigators break a case when there are no local suspects? Well, about 2 weeks after the murder, a massive break comes from an unexpected place. A late-night tip pointing to a 5-time convicted felon up in Missouri named Curtis Wayne Wright. As detectives pull that thread, another career criminal named Jimmy Ray Rogers enters the picture. And ominously enough, he referred to himself online as the Hammer. Which brings us to an incredible number, 1,104. And this brilliantly illustrates the exact distance, 1,104 miles from Curtis Wayne Wright's home in Missouri, down Interstate 75, directly to Dr. Teresa Sievers' driveway in Florida. The killers essentially made a cross-country road trip with one singular dark purpose. But of course, when they were initially interviewed, both men vehemently denied ever leaving Missouri.
Well, digital breadcrumbs absolutely destroyed those lies. It really goes to show how nearly impossible it is to commit a crime without leaving some kind of digital trace today. First off, detectives seized a GPS from a vehicle in Wright's driveway. The data was deleted, sure, but after hundreds of man-hours, tech experts recovered the code and bingo, it showed a route directly to the victim's house in Florida. Step 2, they tracked that GPS route to a nearby Florida Walmart and pulled the CCTV footage. The video clearly showed Wright and Rogers walking the aisles, buying suspicious items like trash bags and lockpicks. Finally, investigators found the physical evidence. A discarded blue jumpsuit worn during the murder, just tossed on the side of a highway. The Missouri boys were officially placed at the Florida crime scene.
That brings us to Part 3, The Hitmen Confess. With a mountain of digital and physical evidence piling up, the hitmen's inner circle finally starts to crack. See, the suspects thought distance would shield them, but they vastly underestimated their digital footprint. When detectives leaned on their associates back in Missouri, the wall of silence completely broke. Investigators questioned Jimmy Ray Rogers' girlfriend, Taylor Shoemaker, and she just broke down in tears. She admitted to confronting him in bed, point-blank asking if he shot someone. His response was deeply chilling. She said he made his stupid little chuckle and then said, "with a hammer." She actually physically walked detectives to the exact spot on the side of the road where that bloody blue jumpsuit was discarded. The evidence was aligning perfectly now.
Next up, Part 4, Best Friend's Betrayal. Now we hit the massive twist in this explainer. Realizing the walls are closing in fast, Curtis Wainwright flips to save himself from the death penalty. He takes a plea deal for a 25-year sentence in exchange for his truthful testimony. And the mastermind he implicates? His childhood best friend, Mark Sievers. This completely escalates the case from what looked like a random robbery to a highly calculated murder-for-hire plot orchestrated by the victim's own husband. According to the investigation, the alleged motives were largely financial. We're talking imminent bankruptcy and a very lucrative life insurance payout. But the initial plans were far more horrifying. Back at a wedding in Missouri, Mark proposed something called the collateral damage plan. He actually suggested killing Teresa outside her clinic, callously noting that if someone else died with her, it would just look like a random robbery and keep the suspension totally off of him. To pull this whole thing off, they relied heavily on burner phones. Mark and Curtis set up a secret, untraceable communication network using these prepaid phones just to avoid detection. Whenever they needed to discuss the murder plot, they used a specific code word in their normal, everyday text messages. That code word was other. The moment one of them texted other, they would both immediately switch over to their secret prepaid phones to coordinate the cross-country hit. It was calculated, it was deliberate, and it was entirely hidden from their normal cell records. Let's move on and see how this builds in Part 5, the husband's trial. Detectives arrested Mark Sievers at his home, and they actually noted that when they extracted him, he had this ice-cold smirk on his face. Now facing trial for first-degree murder, the entire case basically hinges on the testimony of an admitted killer, Curtis Wainwright. At the trial, the defense deployed a pretty fascinating strategy. Mark Sievers' lawyer argued that Wright acted entirely alone. They pushed this theory that Wright was secretly obsessed with Mark and deeply jealous of his Florida lifestyle. Their whole angle was basically, if Curtis can't have Mark, nobody can. Furthermore, they pointed out something super interesting. If this was a hit for money, why did the killers leave nearly $50,000 in cash completely untouched inside the Sievers' home? The defense really wanted the jury to believe this was just a crime of jealous passion by Wright, completely absolving the husband. But then, Curtis Wright took the stand. And despite those attempts to paint him as some jealous lone wolf, Wright chillingly outlined the exact murder-for-hire agreement, right down to a $600 check for travel expenses and a promised $100,000 cut of the insurance money. When asked about the murder itself, Wright's testimony was just raw and terrible. He described waiting in the dark and accidentally kicking a dog dish, which startled Teresa. He told the court, "I was afraid she would scratch me or leave evidence. I swung the hammer and I hit her." He looked the jury right in the eye and confessed to fighting her for her life on the floor of her own home. Ultimately, the jury trusted the mountain of corroborating evidence over the defense's theories. Jimmy Ray Rogers was found guilty of second-degree murder and received a 25-year sentence. Curtis Wainwright got his promised 25 years in exchange for his testimony. But for Mark Sievers, the jury found him guilty of first-degree murder and conspiracy. And despite a truly heartbreaking letter from Mark's eldest daughter begging the court to spare her father's life, the jury recommended and the judge finalized the death penalty. Mark Sievers was held ultimately responsible for orchestrating the hit. At his sentencing, Mark Sievers was actually given a chance to speak. Did he apologize? Did he show any remorse at all for the loss of his wife? No. His final statement was completely defiant. He said, "I cannot feel remorse for something I had absolutely nothing to do with." He maintained his absolute innocence, claiming his soul was in God's hands and calling the whole thing a wrongful conviction. Onlookers in the courtroom even noted that while Sievers finally shed some tears during the trial, he was only ever crying for himself, never for Teresa. We're going to end our explainer today with a really profound remark from Judge Bruce Kyle as he handed down that ultimate punishment. After listening to a trial filled with betrayal, burner phones, and just brutal violence, the judge looked directly at Mark Sievers and delivered this thought-provoking statement. "I judge people's actions, I don't judge people's souls. And if I'm wrong, hopefully God will have mercy on both of us." It's a heavy, powerful conclusion that really leaves us questioning the true depths of human deception and the heavy burden of justice. So what do you think about the verdicts? Was justice truly served? Thank you so much for unraveling this incredible case with me, and we'll catch you next time.